All right, SABC lawyers are studying the Supreme Court of Appeal judgment dismissing the application for leave to appeal an earlier judgment that nullified Hlaudi Motsoeneng's permanent appointment as our Chief Operating Officer. For more on this story, we're now joined on the line by his legal representative, Zola Majavu. Advocate, thank you for joining us. I understand the only avenue for Mr. Motsoeneng now is the Constitutional Court. What is the plan?
Firstly, let me confirm that we did receive the court ruling. It's not a full judgment, a ruling this morning, and we spent the better part of the day consulting on various options with Mr. Motsoeneng. He does respect the outcome of the court, and he has not instructed me to proceed with the Concord application. In fact, to the contrary, I advised against that particular approach, as I am of the view that there are no constitutional issues that he certainly can raise at his instance. He has accepted that advice. What we have instead decided to do is to write a letter on his behalf to his employer, that is the SABC, to then ask for clarity from them as to what is it that they intend doing in the light of this judgment. It must also be borne in mind that the decision that was set aside was a decision to appoint him as COO permanently, and that decision was taken by the SABC board with the minister's concurrence. He had nothing to do with it. So basically, we throwing the ball back into the court of those who took the decision to appoint him, to say, look, in the light of this court's decision, what do they elect to do? And once we've received the employer's response, I would then be able to advise him accordingly on the options available to him.
Advocate, does this ruling mean then that the first appointment was irrational, the permanent appointment you say? Does he accept he's effectively then out of a job?
Out of a job in relation to the permanent position of COO. Remember, he is still an employee of the SABC. When he was appointed to the permanent position of COO, he didn't come as an external candidate, and you would be the first to appreciate that he was an employee and all his rights as an employee remain fully reserved. And that is precisely why we are saying it's not really an issue for him. And as a matter of fact, he was the third applicant. The other two applicants were the SABC board itself and the minister. They are the ones whose decision was being set aside, and they are the ones who had to convince the court that their decision was rational, not Motsoeneng's decision. He's an employee just like you. If your employers decide to promote you tomorrow or to give you another title, and it turns out that the process that they followed in doing so was flawed, it's not your issue. And we're adopting the same approach with Mr. Motsoeneng. He is still an employee of the SABC. Make no mistake about that. The only issue is he has to continue tendering his services. And it is for the employer to redirect him, reassign him, or deal with his employment in the manner that it, as an employer, deems fit. Our response would then be informed by what is it that the employer elects to do.
All right, so you said that you will be writing to the SABC. In the meantime, will he...
I've written to them already. I have written to them.
You've written to the company. Will he be coming to work in the meantime while he awaits a response?
It will be silly of him not to go to work. I have advised him to continue to tender his services at the SABC. Ideally, the SABC should have responded to us by today so that there is clarity. But because we were only able to send that letter just after 4:30, to be fair to the SABC, I do not think they had an opportunity to consider the option. So he will go to work tomorrow. These employers will then indicate to him what should happen next, and then we'll take it from there.
Advocate, like you say, before he was permanently appointed, he was acting Chief Operations Officer. In your letter on his behalf, is there any request to return to an acting position, any other position?
It's a decision that we've left squarely in the hands of the employer, which is the SABC. It is not for me to suggest which position he must occupy. And that is why we thought the most prudent and reasonable thing to do is to write back to the self-same employer to say, in the light of this judgment, one, are you challenging the decision or are you pretty much accepting it, that is where it ends? Two, depending on whatever their answer to the above may be, what is it that they are now expecting of him? Because we have to get certainty. He can't decide for himself. The employer must give guidance in the light of the court's decision, which he has elected to abide by. But beyond that, it is the employer's call. And that is precisely a conscious decision that we took to say, before we act, let us find out what it is that the employer elects to do about the judgment itself, number one, and number two, about your contractual relationship with them. And all his rights remain fully reserved. So it is not a foregone conclusion that that is the end of his relationship with the SABC. Far from it, actually. What is a given is that his appointment, not by himself, but by the board and the minister to confirm him as a permanent COO, has been set aside by the highest court. That deals with such matters, and we have to accept it, and he understands that.
All right, thank you very much. That was Advocate Zola Majavu acting on behalf of SABC's COO Hlaudi Motsoeneng, saying he accepts the Supreme Court of Appeal judgment against Motsoeneng, but he still feels that he's employed by the SABC and it's now in the organization's court, and they're expecting a response to that later.